Hello, beautiful Hair Lounge community. Angelina here in the Hair Lounge. Today I'm going to show you how to trim your own hair. Desperate times call for desperate measures, so stay tuned and I'm going to do a haircut on myself just to show you it's not too hard if you know what you're doing. Stay tuned and we'll get right into it. Well, let's not forget, I do hair, so it is easier for me to cut my own hair, but with my guidance, I think you will be able to do yours. Biggest thing I want to tell you is when you are cutting your own hair, it's best if you are only going to be cutting, say maybe an inch, maybe 2 inches max. And I'm just going to show you a base one length haircut. I don't suggest you do layers in your hair. Layers are tricky even whenever I try to do it on myself. This is just to get you by, to get rid of any split ends you have, or if your hair is just getting a tiny bit too long. Like I said, only do about 1 inch to 2 inches. That way, you don't jack up your hair because no one wants that. So before we begin, I did shampoo my hair. So it's pretty wet still. I haven't combed it out. So you're gonna make sure that you get it all combed out before you start. I'm gonna spray a tiny bit of It's a 10 in there. It's just a leave-in conditioner to help get out the tangles out of my ends. Again, I like to use my wet brush, starting at the very ends. And this is a very important step because you want to make sure you are getting all of the tangles out. That way, everything when you comb it is going to be very straight. So make sure you get all of those tangles. So the next step is, if you are someone that parts your hair not in one spot, meaning you switch, you go from left side to right side, or you go straight down the middle, you want to start with your hair straight down the middle, parted. That way you're able to switch your part back and forth. I always part my hair on one side, so I always part it on my right side, and so that's where I'm going to start with my sections. And then we are going to comb it out. This part is very important because if you part it not quite where you normally part it, or if you part down the middle but you are switching sides, you're gonna have one side be longer than the other. So make sure you're parting it correctly. Now I'm gonna take my towel because it's still pretty wet and I'm just gonna get the ends so they're not dripping. You need to make sure you have a comb, a pair of very sharp scissors before you begin, and then I'm gonna put a cape on, or you can just use a old towel. And I'm gonna take out my big hoop earrings out of the way. That way we're not snagging them while I cut my hair. Now don't forget, if anytime during this video you have any questions, leave them down below. And if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. All right, here's my cape. Let's get this guy on. I'm gonna do it a little different. I'm gonna do it backwards. That way it's not super big in the front and I'm able to use my arms still. Okay, to begin now on the actual haircut, I always part my hair down the middle and the back, roughly the middle. Try to get it as close as you can. Obviously, you can't see the back of your head, so use your best judgment. The easiest thing for me is I have an A-line, meaning the back is shorter than the front. So for me to actually cut my hair into the A-line shape, it does help doing it in the front first. So this is gonna be my base of my haircut. This is gonna be the determining length of my haircut by cutting the front first. And combing everything straight down. As you can see, my hair, like if I turn my head to the side, this front is longer than this back side. So that is exactly how I'm going to trim it while I'm cutting my hair. So I'm gonna make sure, and if you kind of tilt your head, it makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to make sure I leave this front section a little bit longer than this back. And then obviously the same thing on this side. Like I said, we are only trimming our hair, so we're only going to be doing about 1 inch on my hair just to clean up the very ends, since I'm starting to get split ends. So you will need help with the back. So I will recruit my husband to trim the very back of my hair, and then we will show you how to guide someone or tell someone how to cut the back of your hair, just to make it a little bit easier because you can't see the back of your head. All right, let's start cutting. So like I said, sharp scissors are what you're gonna need, and we're cutting the front first. The biggest thing with hair when you're cutting it, you need to make sure that it's all the same wetness. Wet hair stretches, and so when it is dry, it shrinks up. So you wanna make sure that you remember that when you're cutting your hair. So don't cut too much, because whenever it dries, it's gonna be a little bit shorter than what it is. So make sure all of it is the same wetness all over. And you want to do small sections for your first cut. Since I like mine to be angled, I'm going to be angling my hand while I'm cutting it, just to make sure my hand's going to be kind of like my ruler or my level to be able to know how much I am cutting. So combing everything straight down. And like I said, I am only going to do roughly about an inch. You want to make sure while you're combing your hair, you are holding it in the spot that it's going to be lying. So for example, I'm not going to comb all this straight down and then bring it back here and cut it. Because if I do that, this front stuff is not, it's just, you have to cut it the way that it's going to be laying when your hair is down. Go back, getting my section, and about an inch off of it. So you want to make sure you have zero elevation, meaning you're not holding it up when you're cutting it, but I'm gonna hold it up so that way you guys can see it. So if you're cutting your own hair, you're gonna comb it straight down and keep your hand here to determine the length. Once you get the length that you want, then you can lift it up so it's easier to see. So that's what I'm doing now. So whenever I go in, I do like to do a point cut, holding my scissors at an angle. If you do it straight across, you're gonna get blunt ends. So if you hold it at an angle, your scissors, and just cut just an inch off of it. Now this is gonna be your guide to the rest in the back. So with my hair being an A-line, if I tilt my head, that makes it a little bit easier and keeps that angle in there. And I am going to take that hair that I had just cut and let that be my guide for the rest of it. So I can see this piece right here is my shorter section, and I'm just going to take that back. Again, roughly doing probably about an inch to 2 inches sections going back. So 1 inch all the way back. And continuing that all the way to my parting that I have in the very back of my head. Again, looking about an inch, and you can see, let me see if I can get this on camera. So this is the inch that I cut, and then that's what I need to cut. So make sure you're keeping that guide to know how much you need to be taking off. And still slanting my head down and forward so I don't lose that shape. Following that guide back. Okay, my right side is just about done. So if you can see, this front section is what I have already cut. And then this back is a little bit longer, and that's what I'm going to trim right now. You don't have to worry too much about it, because if you're gonna have, say, your friend or your husband or boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever cut your hair, they will be evening that up in the back. So with my head slanted, it's gonna give me that angle off the back, and that's just what I need to remove. Still going to point cut. I'm not going to hold it up this time. I'm just removing that inch. Just like that. Now we're going to move on to my right side, doing exactly the same way that we did that left. So the biggest thing is you want to make sure your front sections are even. So that is about the inch that I'm gonna cut off. So you wanna be conservative on your very first cut. So instead of doing what I actually think I'm gonna cut off, I'm gonna do a tiny bit less, and then I'm going to measure again, just to be sure I'm not taking too much off. Then I'll go back and take a little bit more off until that front piece is even. You wanna make sure that front piece is even, because if you take too much off of this and you're not checking to make sure it's even with the other side that you already cut, the whole right side of the cut is gonna be completely off. So before you move on, double check to make sure it's even. Okay, so let's start this side on this cut. Again, tilting my head to the side and over. And doing, like I said, about an inch, a little bit less than an inch, so that way I can make sure I am checking with my right side before I move on. Best thing is pull on it and look in the mirror. That looks good. So now we're going to move back an inch using that front section as our guide, holding my fingers at an angle. You just want to make sure while you're doing it, make sure you are combing everything straight down and there's no, bumps or anything like that. So you want to see how this section is a little bit baggy. You want to make sure that is super, super tight and straight. That's going to ensure you're getting a good, even haircut. All right, now this is where we're going to make sure we're grabbing the correct hair and bringing it straight forward. Okay, and as you can see, this is where those long pieces are. Just honestly connecting the dots, just making sure everything is combed very straight and connecting that back to that front. Now, this is where you're going to double check that both of your sides are even still. The biggest thing in cutting hair is making sure you don't have any weird random spots and both sides are even. So I feel like this right side on this back section is still a little bit long. So we're gonna go back and measure again. So I can see it right here on this back section. My angle, you can see how this little spot right here is a little bit longer than this front, so that's what we're going to remove again. Making sure everything is combed very straight. And just removing that bulkiness. Okay, now let's double check to make sure we are even. Looks good. So that is all that I can do. The biggest thing now is I will have my husband trim the back section for me. So when you're having them trim the back, since I like the A-line, this front section is already cut. So he's going to be connecting the dots from this front to the very back and removing whatever is long in the middle section. So for an A-line cut, when you take this hair and you push it all the way back to the back, since it is traveling from this front section back, this hair is going to pretty much fall out of the cut because it has a longer distance to travel to from here all the way to the back. So it's gonna leave it long if you cut it straight across in the back. So it's pretty easy for him to do. I tell him the comb is kind of like the level, and he's gonna comb everything straight down and have these two sections be his guide and just remove whatever is in the back that is not connected. All right, I recruited him. So the biggest thing is make sure you are looking straight down. That way you're not gonna get those long hangy things on the very bottom. So your head has to be looking down. Easy peasy. So if you were watching, he just combs everything straight down and just cuts the very bottom of it. Obviously, point cutting, not that big of a deal, just straight across in the back to keep that A-line length and look. Like I said, the biggest thing is you need to make sure you are measuring this front stuff, because if you're not measuring this front stuff, the stuff in the back will not be even. If you like what you see, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss out on any of my new and up and coming videos. I hope this video was easy for you guys to follow. And like I said, I am a professional. Don't cut too much off your hair so you don't have a haircut disaster. But we'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.